In 1979, Bo Derek did not simply appear on screen, she became an image etched into American pop culture. With the success of 10, she embodied an ideal that audiences instantly recognized and the industry quickly amplified. But in Hollywood, visibility is never neutral. The greater the success, the tighter the frame. Public admiration carries expectation, expectation shapes narrative, and narrative can confine as much as it elevates. For many performers, the real challenge begins after the breakthrough, learning how to live inside an image the world believes it understands. If you value thoughtful analysis, please like, subscribe, and share your perspective below. Bo Derek's defining breakthrough came in 1979 with her role as Jenny Hanley in 10, directed by Blake Edwards. Prior to this, she had appeared in smaller projects, including Orca, 1977, but none had positioned her as a central figure in mainstream American cinema. 10 changed that overnight. The film became a commercial success, and Derek received a Golden Globe nomination for New Star of the Year. More importantly, the role transformed her from a relatively unknown actress into one of the most recognizable faces in the country. The timing was critical. Hollywood in the late 1970s was transitioning. The new Hollywood era had brought artistic experimentation and morally complex storytelling, yet studios were increasingly aware of the financial power of broad appeal films. 10 struck that balance. It was adult, ironic, and reflective of contemporary anxieties about aging, desire, and idealized beauty. Derek's character functioned less as a conventional romantic lead and more as a projection, an embodiment of fantasy within a satirical framework. Her screen presence was understated rather than theatrical. That restraint worked in her favor. She did not overpower scenes, she anchored them visually and emotionally. Audiences responded not to dramatic range but to composure and poise. The now iconic braided hairstyle became a cultural phenomenon, reinforcing her identity in the public imagination. In a media environment with fewer channels and no social media, such imagery carried extraordinary staying power. This breakthrough altered her professional standing immediately. She moved from supporting roles to headline status. Studios saw marketability. The press saw a rising star. The public saw an ideal. Yet that elevation also narrowed perception. She was no longer simply an actress seeking varied roles, she was a symbol linked to a specific cinematic moment. That distinction matters. A breakthrough can expand opportunity, but it can also define boundaries. In Derek's case, 10 established visibility, financial viability, and industry credibility, but it also set a template that would shape every opportunity that followed. If this analysis adds perspective, consider liking, subscribing, and sharing your thoughts below. The commercial triumph of 10 placed Bo Derek in a uniquely precarious position. Fame arrived quickly, and with it came an intensified media gaze. Interviews increasingly focused less on craft and more on image. The braided hair, the beach sequence, the idea of the perfect 10, these became shorthand identifiers repeated in headlines and talk shows. The public narrative was narrowing, and Derek had to decide whether to resist it or work within it. Her immediate career choices suggest a deliberate alignment rather than a dramatic departure. She continued collaborating with director John Derek, appearing in films such as Tarzan, The Ape Man, 1981, and later Bolero, 1984. These projects leaned into the sensual image that had propelled her to prominence. While critically divisive, they were consistent with the brand recognition already established. From a strategic standpoint, repetition can be a form of control. Reinforcing a known identity reduces uncertainty in a volatile industry. At the same time, this strategy carried risk. By centering her filmography around a specific aesthetic and a close creative partnership, she limited exposure to alternative directors and genres. In Hollywood, diversification often safeguards longevity. Derek's path favored consolidation over expansion. It preserved coherence but constrained reinvention. Handling media pressure required composure. Public appearances and interviews during the early 1980s reflect a calm, measured demeanor rather than confrontation. She rarely engaged in public disputes or attempted dramatic rebranding. Instead, she maintained consistency. That consistency signaled stability even when critical reception fluctuated. For a mature audience, this phase underscores a fundamental professional truth: visibility must be managed, not merely enjoyed. Derrick's approach emphasized image continuity and personal loyalty over industry experimentation. Whether one views that as prudent or limiting, it was undeniably intentional. Fame magnifies every decision. Strategic positioning determines whether that magnification strengthens or distorts a career. If you appreciate balanced career analysis, please like, subscribe, and share your perspective in the comments. As the initial surge of blockbuster visibility stabilized, Bo Derek entered a phase defined less by spectacle and more by control. The intense scrutiny of the early 1980s gradually gave way to a more selective public presence. Rather than competing for constant screen exposure, she recalibrated her relationship with Hollywood itself. One of the most significant aspects of this period was the degree of creative involvement she maintained in projects developed alongside John Derek. While she was primarily known as an on-screen presence, she also functioned within a tightly managed production structure that gave her proximity to decision-making. The model was unconventional by studio standards, but it allowed for direct influence over tone, presentation, and distribution strategy. That closeness to the production process marked a shift from performer to participant in broader creative execution. Over time, her professional footprint expanded beyond feature films. She appeared in television, movies, and series, diversifying format and audience reach. Television in the 1990s offered a different rhythm, more character-driven, less reliant on spectacle. This environment allowed her to step outside the singular image forged in 1979 and present herself in varied contexts without dramatic reinvention. Equally important was brand repositioning through advocacy. Derek became publicly associated with issues such as veteran support and animal welfare, lending her platform to causes rather than commercial promotion alone. Advocacy, when sustained, reframes public identity. It signals depth and continuity beyond past roles. For audiences who value civic engagement, this evolution matters. Strategically, she reduced overexposure. In an industry that often equates visibility with relevance, restraint can be a powerful form of leverage. By choosing projects selectively and maintaining a measured media presence, she preserved autonomy. The absence of constant output became part of her repositioning. Career control does not always manifest as expansion into directing or large-scale entrepreneurship. Sometimes it appears as disciplined selectivity and narrative ownership. Derek's later professional years demonstrate an understanding that longevity depends not only on opportunity, but on boundaries and the willingness to define them deliberately. The later chapters of Bo Derek's life illustrate a shift from career acceleration to personal calibration. After decades in the public eye, she chose a pace that reflected intention rather than momentum. This was not a dramatic disappearance, but a gradual repositioning away from constant visibility. In an industry that often equates relevance with frequency, deliberate withdrawal can be a declaration of self-definition. Following the death of John Derek in 1998, she stepped back from high-profile projects and limited media engagement. Public appearances became selective. Interviews were reflective rather than promotional. The emphasis was no longer on sustaining a cinematic image, but on maintaining personal equilibrium. For audiences who have navigated long careers themselves, this transition feels familiar. There comes a point when stability outweighs expansion. Her long-term relationship with actor John Corbett, whom she later married, further reflects this recalibrated life structure. Their publicly shared lifestyle, centered around ranch living in California, equestrian interests, and a quieter domestic routine, signals a conscious prioritization of privacy and continuity. These choices are documented and visible, not speculative. They indicate a move toward grounded living rather than industry immersion. What stands out is the absence of aggressive reinvention. Derek did not attempt to radically redefine herself to fit shifting Hollywood trends. Nor did she reject her past. Instead, she contextualized it. She has spoken about earlier fame with composure, acknowledging both its opportunities and its constraints without dramatization. That measured tone reinforces authenticity. Sustainable fame is rarely about constant amplification. It is about maintaining recognition without surrendering autonomy. Derek's trajectory suggests an understanding that public identity must eventually coexist with private stability. By reducing exposure, choosing selective engagements, and aligning her life with personal interests, she preserved both name recognition and self-continuity. For a generation that values endurance over spectacle, her later years offer a practical lesson. Lasting presence depends not on remaining at the center of attention, but on knowing when to step outside it, deliberately, calmly, and on one's own terms. Bo Derek's career endures not because of volume, but because of imprint. Decades after her breakthrough, a single cinematic image still resonates across generations. That kind of cultural permanence is rare. Yet legacy is not built solely on moments of visibility, it is shaped by the choices that follow them. Her story offers a layered lesson about success. Early triumph can elevate swiftly and decisively, but it also defines the narrative framework within which a person must operate. In Derek's case, 10 created immediate recognition and financial viability. It proved that timing, presentation, and cultural context can align to produce impact that exceeds expectation. But success at that scale demands strategy. Without intentional direction, public identity can become restrictive. Autonomy, then, becomes central. Whether through selective collaborations, controlled media presence, or gradual withdrawal from constant exposure, Derek demonstrated an awareness that career longevity depends on boundaries. Not every opportunity must be pursued. Not every headline must be answered. In an industry known for volatility, restraint can be a stabilizing force. Building a sustainable career requires more than talent or marketability. It requires self-definition. Derek's later years reflect a conscious prioritization of personal equilibrium over relentless expansion. She neither repudiated her early fame nor chased its intensity indefinitely. Instead, she allowed it to become one chapter within a broader life arc. From a balanced perspective, her trajectory illustrates both the advantages and limitations of early typecasting, the complexities of closely managed creative partnerships, and the importance of evolving beyond a singular image. It is not a story of unchecked ascent or dramatic collapse. It is a study in recalibration. For audiences who value endurance over spectacle, the takeaway is clear: success opens doors, autonomy determines direction, and sustainability requires measured choices over time. If this perspective added value, consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing your thoughts in the comments below.